All right. So, this is the first podcast of Integral Urban Education. And I don't know if that name is going to stick. I'm not going to worry about the name. I'm going to talk. So, over the past couple months, I've been diving into integral theory by the work of Ken Wilber, but in essence, he's adopted it from Claire Graves. More so, it encompasses a lot of different things from the works of Maslow to Piaget to others. I suggest looking into that. It mainly is a human development map, if you will, in essence. But nonetheless, I realized a couple things about diving into this integral theory, and which is basically a theory of everything, and therefore it's never going to be done because everything is always happening all at once. However, the AQAL map, which stands for something, God help me, I can't pronounce it, it's hard. It's like Aquila Latis, and I always forget the rest. But not to be too ambiguous and discredit myself by not knowing what the map actually means, I can actually play what it does mean from one of the videos that I have saved here. Hold on, I will bring that up in this moment. So I found this actually from a guy on TikTok. His name is, well, I won't say it, but he does math. But he does math with relationships. And he adopted it for his niche. My niche is urban education, so I'm adopting it as well. Um, it's always funny when a person who's adopted adopts something. It's like a little baby that I never could have. But in essence, Aquila Latis. Ah, here it is. I took a moment to find. Yeah, this is
The
from
core of
Adam.
integral theory is a system of five conceptual models called quadrants, levels, lines, types, and states. Levels may also be called stages or waves, and types may also be called streams. AQUIL is an acronym for all quadrants, all levels, shortened because Aquila Latis sounds dumb. From a consciousness-centered view of the cosmos, these are the primary points of focus to check in with all dimensions of reality. Using this philosophical map helps a person to center on what is truly essential to comprehend, clears up misunderstanding and endless debate, aligns us with our own highest truths, and clarifies what is unknown or falsely assumed. A complete view of second-tier reality includes all five modules, while a biased or reductionist viewpoint will inevitably fail to acknowledge at least one. The content of the Aquil model is open source, allowing for continual development, refinement, and emergent discovery. The current iteration is Wilbur's fifth version. None of this content is new or groundbreaking. The five modules represent aspects of ultimate truth that have spanned the history of thought and remain essential to the present day. They have simply been organized for efficiency and ease of use. In subsequent 1-minute integral videos, we will break down the five components of integral theory. Check out my longer videos for descriptions and detailed exploration, and subscribe to Unthink Me to take the plunge into a sane future.
So Unthink Me is a great YouTube channel. When I was diving into this, of all the people that I did see try to help me understand this model, if you will, or map better, Adam is the absolute best. So props to Adam from Unthink Me on YouTube. Check him out. Basically, my goal, as far as SEL goes, was to adopt this as a rubric. I saw it as a rubric. And I viewed it as a physical thing that the students could look at, that they could recognize at what state or stage or level they are currently in. All right, those recognitions are hard to do in the moment. You really need to be outside of yourself at all times, and when you are triggered, we all know that cognitive disinhibition may occur, and that in essence can be, dysfunctional to learning, whether it be whatever the student is going through. And I imagine it as such is they are simply writing their autobiographies in real time on the way to class. Now, when they get there, we are not on the same page, and everyone is writing their own story as it goes. Just because they walked in the door doesn't mean that we're going to be writing the same story. I'm merely just a part. I could be only a sentence in that chapter, and I prefer to be the chapter, because that would mean that it was significant enough that they wrote a full chapter in their autobiography as such. If that's such odd metaphor, or what have you, then so be it. But I do view it as that, and I know I'm talking on a podcast, so look it up. It's AQAL, an integral map, from Ken Wilber, who does integral theory, and I do special education mathematics in an urban school district in New Jersey. That being said, integral is a mathematical operation that I'm aware of. It's a great one, and so I was intrigued and continue to become more and more fascinated with this idea of integralness, if that's a word yet. I don't know, man. But it's pretty cool. I suggest diving in more into it. However, I have to reevaluate my core, you know, my core essence, if you will. So, principles, values, ethics, and do's and don'ts. Or when the don'ts happen, what does the don't need in order for it to be balanced? Those were the things I thought about first. And so, it has its own set of values and ethics to identify as. Now, what they are defined as in integral theory, I barely even got that far. That's how integral it is. However, I know certain principles that I recognize that are universal, like macrocosms and microcosms, fractals, if you're thinking in terms of math, that balance is much like a Jedi from Star Wars, that there needs to be balance. In essence, you could call that like polarity, if you will, like the yin yang, principles of gender, not gender from a biological standpoint, but more from an energetic viewpoint. All right, so like gender is in everything. It has masculine and feminine principles. Gender creates itself on all kinds of planes. All right, just that general principle of gender. Gender is a principle, but I'm going to view it from that viewpoint, and that is my viewpoint on gender. I care not of the bio, I care not of the psychological, I care not. I simply think of gender as energy. Whether it is masculine or feminine energy is maybe up for debate. Maybe we can have a conversation about that. I'm viewing this more holistically, in essence. I care not of gender, but it does have energy. It does. I work with an 8 in my class, she is a woman. That mother-father energy that we produce for our students is something that I do take note of. Okay? Now, in essence, I'm usually the good cop. However, I'm willing to be the bad cop. And when she is the bad cop, I'm sure that is draining on her because she is a very good person. However, she's able to absorb that energy where if I wanted to become a cop, I wouldn't have become a teacher. Period. My main thing that I'm really good with, principally, is rhythm, like flow, state, the flow of things, and like a little sub principle of that, like to go a little bit further down, I'm excellent at harmony. That is my gift. I hear in harmony, I recognize harmony, and I can, for example, like I do play the guitar, so when I hear a song, I don't necessarily play the song, but I can just play with the song. I don't know how that I can do that, but I mean, it's really not that hard. When you hear a wrong note, it's the wrong one. Don't play it again. It's really not that difficult. But kinesthetically, I know where the shapes my hands need to take within the limitations that I was given biologically. The extension of my fingers of which notes I can hit, and that's somewhat limited. But there's also a capo, nonetheless. One of the last principles that I had to think about was just cause and effect. All right? One of the last. I'm good with cause and effect. However, when I think of cause and effect, I always have to consider the Chinese farmer, right? If you don't know the Chinese farmer, it's a story about a farmer whose horse runs away, and all the village people come back and they're like, "Oh my God, that's terrible! What happened? What happened to your horse? I can't believe how terrible this is for you." And he goes, "Maybe." And in turn, the next day the horse returns, but not only the horse, it brings 7 new wild horses with him. And everyone from the village comes over and they go, "That's amazing! Now you have 7 horses. How wonderful this is! The abundance of it all." And he just says maybe. And the next day his son is trying to break a horse, and is on top, and the horse throws him and he falls and he breaks his leg, and the villagers come back again and they express how terrible the situation is, and the farmer just replies, "Maybe." And the last turn of the scene of the story, I think it's an inscription officer, a military recruit man, comes and knocks on the farmer's door and he says, "We're recruiting young men for a war. Give us your young men. They need to come." And the farmer simply says, "Well, my son has broken his leg. He's not fit for war." And everyone from the village comes out, "My son had to go and your son didn't. How amazing." And the farmer just replies, "Maybe." So as far as cause and effect are concerned, that is my stance on cause and effect. I adopt that as the general mentality, or, emotional viewpoint on triggers and how I may need to be affected by them. But, every cause has its effect, and every effect has its cause, and everything happens according to, chance. But, it's hard to describe law, what could be happening. In essence, we are not fortune tellers. We do know that. But as I go on, we got to keep moving. I admire a shark. I do. They're always moving. They're always moving. And I do know that if I'm not moving, I'm not grooving. Okay? But, my mentality is forever evolving. And I'll leave that principle at that. So, that being said, if I'm not going to identify, the values and ethics of integral, I just skip that problem. On a test, you skip a problem, whatever. I was raised by an Irish Catholic man, right? And an Italian Catholic mother. And so, the 7 deadly sins are the 7 deadly sins to me. Not to be too religious, but as far as my background goes, I know about wrath. I also know about patience. And I know about gluttony. And I understand a little bit about temperance. I know about greed, and I know about charity. I know about envy. And I know a lot about kindness. I know about sloth, but not really, because I'm usually moving pretty quickly or trying really hard. Sometimes I'm trying too hard, But I understand about diligence. And in terms of slothness, I always picture my efforts as when they become too hard to, let it happen. I remember that scene from, I will forget what movie it is, geez. He's an instructor on the beach. It was with Paul Rudd. Paul Rudd movie, great movie. And they're trying to learn how to surf. And the guy's like, "All right, well, you're doing too much. Do less." Nah, what do you mean do less? Because he's trying to learn how to surf. Do less. What do you mean do less? Yeah, you're doing too much. Do less. How does that help? Do less. I always remember that scene. If you remember that scene, you know the name of the movie, let me know. All right. And then, of course, the one of the last deadly sins is lust. I understand chastity. Okay, not to say I was, practicing that in my younger years. However, I understand the science behind and the effects of having multiple partners. All right, not to say that I've had multiple partners. Um, in essence, I've had more than two. All right, I have two kids, but they are by the same mother. They're wonderful. But yeah, um, growing up in a culture that uh, shows so much of that, I'm sure that anyone can relate to their lustful desires and the restraint it takes to practice chastity. That is difficult. Difficult. Um, yeah. Nonetheless, the last one, pride, where it can be balanced out with humility. So, a final thought could be, and will need to be, because it is getting close for me to be with my kids. It's about that time. It's about time to get out of school. I had the day off today because of the rain that happened, but I know that it's where I fail, and being able to talk about my failures, because I can learn from someone's successes, but I learn more from someone's failures. So if I'm not going to talk about the failures in my class, trying to do an integral education, then I'm never going to learn about how to make the failures better. And I'm always going to share the successes. What successes have there been? I've identified some students who are very conscious, not just self-conscious, but conscious individuals. Now, whether they're reflective or not, I'm not sure. I haven't gotten there yet. I've been doing this for a week. I've been studying it for months. Aware of it for more than that, in essence. But the failures are occurring with the one rule that I did not put on the board, because it is something that you don't even have to list in the list of rules when you're doing your class, is the golden rule. And so I'm going over the golden rule today, because a lot of rules, because the rules were co-created. The rules were actually created. I gave maybe one rule, and I'll read the rules that in the order and who created what rule and what happened with the rules, as I search for it here in my notes. I know the first rule that I put on the board was does not have to be perfect. That was the first rule I put on the board and said that's the number one rule. Not thinking about the golden rule that I even had to go over that, but I do. Of course, how could the kids need to be reminded of things? And let me tell you, kids need to be reminded of the order of things. And let me give you another example before I end things off. Is I ask my kids who the boss is in the classroom, because remember, I teach special education. And they point at me, and I go, what? No. In this class, you're the boss. You can basically tell me how you want to learn, and I have to do it. If you like to podcast, I have to create an assignment for that. If you like music, I have to create an assignment for that. If you like art, I have to create an assignment for that. If you like, it's Burger King. You can have it your way, right? And I need to synthesize it back to the curriculum, however creative way I can come up with. And I'm usually pretty good at that. However, this year was difficult. I asked them how they wanted it their way, and they don't even know what their way is. And then I said, wait a minute, what? And I said, everyone has, how you say, rules. Everyone has their own rules, how they do stuff. Even gangsters have rules, They're not exactly good, but, I mean, it's Patterson. Everyone's always interested in their get back, Everyone goes by that. They got to get their get back. Come on. I was always taught not to get the get back, that let the universe handle it, or in time, a better opportunity will come. So I just wait for that opportunity to present itself and then get my get back if I need to. In essence, it's usually done by then. The universe handles things. It's the karma. It's called karma, you know? But I ramble. Thanks for listening. So the construction of the rules. As I've gotten more organized in my older age, I'm able to find my scatteredness of ideas. Here's my million tabs that are open, but I finally found it. So the first rule I did say does not have to be perfect. The second rule that they came up with was respect. Cool. The third rule I came up with was you break it, you buy it. And in fact, I brought in a water cooler and it broke. However, we're pretty handy. We'll be able to fix that at no cost. My hope was to help sell water at a reduced cost, and it also was cold, to help generate some income for our class, and they could do with it what they will. But respect, right, was the second. Now, love was a rule they came up with. That just love. To love yourself, to love others. It was a general blanket term. I adopted as love is all you need, because it's like the Beatles, what have you. But another rule that was constructed by me was in terms of respect. When I played off of their rules, because really they couldn't finish more than respect and love, and that is somewhat concerning. But in essence, do you really need anything more as far as rules go? Now, how they define respect is different. I said respect, space, whatever that means. But respect the space, the classroom. And I saw that this week. That was awesome. That was a success. The boys like to throw things in class, but we can't throw things in class. Why? Could hit somebody. Okay. Why else? Because you could break technology. I have a computer there. That's a decent computer. There's a Promethean board. That's wonderful. A window is not as, it's a squishy ball or whatever, but like you're not gonna break it. I buy the playground things. Balls hit that so hard. The kids hit the windows all the time. By kicking the ball, and they're just tossing it. You know what I mean? There's no pitcher in the major leagues, but yeah, respect the space, meaning keep it clean, and respect each other's space, meaning like don't get all up in each other's faces, so that's basically what I mean by respect the space, respect the and each other's space. Now, the rest of the rules, let me tell you one rule that I took away. We were allowed to curse in class. Now, not black and white thinking. Cursing to me is gray. Okay? We're allowed to curse in class. Doesn't mean you have to. Doesn't mean you should. Just means that you're allowed to. However, an unspoken rule as such means, you know it because it is golden at heart, is cursing at someone is different than cursing at a thing. When I drop a bowling ball on my foot, I go, oh shit. If I am walking in the hall, and I see a beautiful picture, and I go, that shit looks awesome. That's different. That's like appropriate cursing. There's nothing negative about it. We can speak positively and have it negate any negative social constructs around cursing. All right? I think that's fucking awesome, if you know what I mean. Now, cursing at somebody is very different. And it's got levels to me. There's levels to it. I can say F you, right? Inappropriate. I can say you're the shit. In essence, I would prefer not to even go there, right? Or I could say, the shirt you wearing, where'd you get that shit? Getting a little more negative, right? Or you know, who picked you out? That shit. It's even worse. Now you're talking about someone's mother because we're in middle school. But that's where the gray area needs to be defined, and that is the the critical thinking that I decided would be maybe some fun to play with, because critical thinking is just not happening. Thinking barely is even happening, to be honest with you, in the classrooms these days. From what I've seen on social media, I've always experienced it where I'm from, but now that other people are experiencing, all of a sudden it's an issue. Well, you know what? I have a lot of experience with people not thinking critically, and I have a lot of experience with kids that don't read well, and I have a lot of experience with kids with dyscalculia, and I have a lot of experience in a lot of areas in my own personal experience, and I would like to start talking about that experience. But finally, I'm going over these rules, and I got to get out of here. My alarms are going off about having to see my children. Hands to yourself. You know, look, boys need to be boys. You know, they need physical contact. They need to wrestle. I was a wrestler. I get the release of needing, but with a rule bound domination type environment. And I think they used to wrestle back, in general education, and they took it away as an after school activity. But my kids, they take the bus, so there is no after school wrestling program for them. All right. So, hands to self first is what I've said, and hurting someone by accident, it still means that you're hurting somebody. All right, and it's a weird rule, but it needs to be said. It's on the list. So fresh and so clean. Clean, kind of went over that already. In the AQAL, or Claire Graves, right? Because Wilbur stole it from Graves. Graves goes over these stages of development. He calls them memes. M-E-M-E. Memes. Memes. Right? That's what he called them. So, because cursing is such a gray area in the class at the moment, the rule is gray and it's not solidified, but it's on the board or the PowerPoint or whatever I have it on, or the Google Slides. In essence, that's everywhere, all those places I just named. But zero, reads as such: zero, blast hyphen, phi, meaning like phi, like the golden ratio associated with beauty, slash memes. No blast phi memes. No blasphemy. So that is some fun with the rules. And this week I'm going to go over consequences for these, because they are, in essence, the kids are not respecting the space. Okay? These are the failures. They are not respecting the space. They are, but they're not. It's like they could do better. They could be more careful. All right? Because where the boys, I did let them toss a ball the other day, and they did it in an appropriate way. They used the desks as like a volleyball thing. They were away from all the tech. They were mindful of the environment and the space. Boys tend to have good spatial recognition in general, so that made a lot of sense. Where the girls were using my computer, and I was a little fearful about them playing the music and being spontaneously, dancing or whatever, and it knocks my computer over. I was more concerned with the girls than the boys in that instance. Okay. So we need to know about these consequences based just on like my what the science says, my experiences. The girls had a little bit of understanding on why I was monitoring them and not the boys, and I was like, but the boys are being more appropriate than you are at the moment. And they're like, well, we're not being inappropriate. I said, no, I didn't say inappropriate. I said more appropriate. There's a difference. All right. So yeah. What else? But yeah, the golden rule is now on it's like done. Like that's the golden rule is solidified. Does not have to be perfect. Is solidified. All the other, like break it, you buy it. It's like slightly gray because the water cooler broke, but it was an accident. So accident broke it. Whose accident? And how's accident going to pay for it? I'm dealing with that. All right. I'm the one that tries to help with the ideas because I can imagine, and I don't know if these kids can, to be honest with you. I see some imagination coming around, and in essence, that's encouraging. So I'm going to keep going because imagination is everything to me. These kids, they don't know what it's like to sit in a car, and watch trees go by. They have a phone. They use it when they're driving. And if they don't do that, they don't know what it's like to wait in a line and just let your mind wander. They're on the phone. I've changed my technology a lot over the past 6 months, and it has fostered a lot more imagination by just not consuming and just letting my mind wander into places that I couldn't even imagine before. So, I need to go. All right. Till the next one. Take care.